It's too late that I'm learning this. My children are older. I've lived my life this way or that way, and this is the way how I used to be, or sometimes this is the way I am with my spouse, and I want to change. And so this lecture is important. In fact, it's very important because all of those good feelings, those feelings when you learn, like I should have done this, like, oh, this is so important. I should have done this in my lifetime. And we have those feelings. Today's lecture is going to put those feelings into action. Okay? So, in fact, I think this is so important because when we learn something, we have to put it into action. And some of us have the opportunity to put it into action today. And for some of us, the opportunity was 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 15 years ago. So today's lecture is actually about how to fix it. How to fix, previous relationships. Relationships, whether they be with your spouse, they be with your parents, with your children, how to fix those relationships. And, today's lecture, implementing this stuff in your life, really shows how sincere you are. Because when you go to the lecture, it sounds nice, you hear some ayat, you hear some hadith, and you hear a story, and it uplifts you, and you leave, and you walk out, and there's nothing to take action on. This lecture is all about the action. So, how you feel at the end of today's, 15-minute talk, and what you do after it, is going to really show how sincere you are about fixing things. About how, if 15 years ago you knew this, whether you would have done it differently. Okay? So this is kind of that gauge. And so the last section the Shaykh he talks about, he says, the Muslim, a good Muslim, instills good behavior and attitudes in their children. And he says, so he instills in them good manners, such as caring for other people. So he lists all of these things. Caring for other people, helping the weak, being kind to the relatives, respecting the elders, being merciful to the young, cheerfully doing good and striving to spread justice among people. And then he says something very important. He says, a person cannot give that which he does not have. You want to give it to your children? You want to give good akhlaq to your children? Then get it yourself first. Have good akhlaq in yourself first, and then you can give it to your children. So, small statement, very profound. And he said, a statement he quotes, he says, somebody once said, righteousness comes from Allah and good manners come from the parents. Righteousness comes from Allah and good manners, akhlaq, comes from the parents. So he says that the Muslim is lenient towards towards the children without being weak. Right? You're lenient, you're merciful, but you're not weak. In other words, a child wants a donut, and you're like, no, I gave you a treat, I gave you this before, you had a cookie already today, and now you want a donut, right? You're merciful with them. Yes, you want to give them some treat, but you don't just keep giving them. You're not weak, because you have to set the boundaries, right? So you have to so you can't be weak. He is lenient towards them without being weak, and is strict with them without being cruel, without cruelty, without harshness. Very, very profound words. And then, in the end, I wanted to add something that I learned from a very prominent researcher, a psychologist. Her name is Dr. Becky. You can buy her book. It's called Good Inside. And she teaches this concept of repair. We talked about how to fix things, right? Time has gone by, things happened, how to fix things. And this is called repairing. And one of the things, there are a few things that she says, and I'm going to go over the steps with you. And this repair can be with your spouse. It could be with your husband. It could be with your wife. Maybe you were married 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 30 years ago, 50 years ago, right? And you dealt with them a certain way. You can still repair that relationship. Your parents, maybe when you were younger, you were, disobedient, disrespectful. You didn't take care of them. It could have been a long time ago, or it could have been yesterday. But there's a way to repair that relationship. Relationship with your children, right? We always think the children are disrespectful and disobedient, but think about those parents who've done injustice to their children. Who have done injustice to their children. Imagine parents who do dhulm to their children, right? That is something they need to correct. They can't say, I'm the parent, I don't care, they need to forgive me and respect me. No, you have to fix that relationship. And how do you do that? We're going to talk about right now. Fixing your relationship with your siblings as well. So how are we going to do that? I'm going to tell you in a minute. Number one is to admit your mistake. Admit your mistake. And this is hard. Number two is remember that we are not perfect, but when you admit your mistake, don't justify it. Say, look, I was harsh that time with you. I didn't want to be harsh, but you deserved it. Right? And then we start justifying, why did you hit this person, or why did you do this, or why did you yell at them? Don't justify what you did. If what you did was wrong, just say you were wrong. Because when you start justifying it, then it makes it look like you're not really sorry. You're not really regretting what happened. So, number one, admit your mistake. Number two, don't justify it. Okay? Because we always have a reason to justify. Like, oh, if only you didn't do this, I wouldn't do this. No, don't say that. Say, I was wrong. Right? I was wrong, I shouldn't have done this. Right? So, for example, I'll give you an example. Like a kid is playing, they're 5 years old, 7 years old, they're playing in the house, they throw something and the glass breaks. What's the first reaction of the parent? Smack. That's the first. Why? Why? Because you don't have a cup to drink from? Now you're going to go thirsty? No, because you're angry. You didn't hit them to teach them, you hit them because you're angry. So you're wrong. You're wrong to hit them over breaking a glass. Now, let me ask you this. Did the child mean to break the glass? No. Right? That's the definition of an accident. Now, adults can do accidents. Can children do accidents? Of course. Of course, children can do accidents. Right? But we smack them, right? Because we are angry. It's not to teach them. We smack them because we're angry. So that, you can't justify that. You can't say, son, I smacked you, I know I was wrong, I shouldn't have smacked you. Period, that's it. Don't say I smacked you because you broke the glass. You're justifying what you did. What you did was wrong. To hit them for an accident is wrong. Okay, so it's very, very important to understand that. Number one, admit your mistake. Number two, don't justify. Number three is apologize. This is it's like impossible. Impossible to say the words, I'm sorry, or I apologize. Impossible. We will never do it. We will say all the other words, everything all around, but we will never say, I'm sorry, or forgive me, or I apologize. Nothing. Right? We will say, I shouldn't have done it. Yeah, that's good to admit your mistake, but apologize. And and here's the thing, most parents think that they never have to apologize to their children. Right? Because they're like, I'm the parent, But you admit your mistake and you apologize. Because you're teaching them that they need to apologize. So when you make a mistake, you apologize. You show them by your example that you're never too big, you're never too old, you're never too grand, you're not famous, you're nobody. You're just a regular human being trying to be a good Muslim. Right? So you have to apologize. The first time I apologized to one of my kids, I think he was like 7 or 8 years old. And he was, he did something, I thought he did something wrong. So, I yelled at him. And after I yelled at him, I realized that he didn't do it, his sister did it. So, he was crying, he was upset. And afterwards, this stuff, I knew this. Like, I said, I have no excuse, right? I know I have to apologize. So I thought about it, I said, how am I going to do it? It's so hard, wallahi, it's so hard. And when it's hard? The first time. Only the first time. And this was, a long time ago. So, I told him, I said, I shouldn't have yelled at you. I should have, accepted, you told me you didn't do it, and I thought you did, and I'm sorry that I yelled at you. Right? Wallahi, that was the most painful apology ever. That was like, if this is 100, it was like 110. Since then, you know how many times I've apologized to my kids? A million times. Like every other day, I'm like, oh, sorry, I didn't see you there, I'm sorry. Or I bumped them, oh, sorry. If something happens, sorry. It comes out like a reflex. Now it's nothing. It's nothing. The first time, oh, it's painful. It's like I would rather lift a mountain. But once you do it, you're like, oh, this is easy. And this repair that's happening happens right away, right? You make the mistake, you apologize. You admit your mistake, don't justify, apologize, and it's forgotten. But if that kid goes to sleep like that, they wake up the next day, they can't focus in school, they're thinking about it in their homework, they're thinking about how they got hit or yelled at, my parents don't love me, I'm a failure, I can never get anything right. You don't think about this, but this is how the child is thinking. And the next day, and the next day, and the next day, and the next week, and the next month, and the next year, if you don't repair, this becomes ingrained in them. My parents don't love me. And then everything that you do or say, they almost make it, make it match with the fact that they don't love you. So it's very, very important to apologize. And here's look at the seerah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, you guys know this famous story, right? He was lining up the companions one day for prayer, right? And he had a stick with him. So he was tapping, move forward, move back, move forward. So he was straightening the row, right? And he tapped somebody in the chest, like, move back. And what did his companion say? He says, Ya Rasulullah, he says, you hurt me and I want revenge. I want revenge. So if somebody asks you, right, in prayer, you move somebody, you tap them on the back, right? And they say, brother, why you hit me? What are you going to say? So I didn't hit you. What are you talking about? I'm just telling you. And the Prophet ﷺ could have done that. Could have said, I'm trying to straighten the row, man. What's wrong? Don't you see? I tapped everybody. I moved these people. And I'm just trying to. No, he said, here, take your revenge. So this is, admitting your mistake, apologizing, just like that. He didn't hesitate. He didn't say, he didn't justify, right? All of these things we just talked about, he did it in one word, in one phrase. He said, admit your mistake, don't justify, apologize. He did it right then and there. And we're going to say the Prophet ﷺ is weak because he apologized. And the reason we don't apologize is because we think it makes us look small. But apologizing makes you look bigger. Because you feel, people see that he apologized, the apology is not making you smaller. It's not belittling you. It's making you bigger and better. Number 4 is promise to not do it again. You should tell them, I'm going to be better. I did this, I made this mistake, and I'm working on it. Tell them, I'm going to do my best not to do this again. And number 5, the rule number 5 is don't delay your repair. Don't delay repairing your relationship. What does that mean? So if something happens today, fix it today. Right? Repair. Do these things today. The more distance you put in the repair, the less effective and the more difficult the repair is going to. Imagine somebody, you fought with your brother or your sister 20 years ago, and now you call them today to repair the relationship. It's going to be so awkward. And all these years, that person's been thinking in their mind, this person's so evil, my brother's so evil, my sister, she's like this. And the shaitan's been playing with them this whole time. And driving you further and further and further. So the quicker you make the repair, the better chances of that relationship working out. So some of us, we weren't great with our children. Maybe that was 5 years ago, 10 years ago, maybe it was 5 days ago. Right? So how do you do it? How do you do it? You can say something like this, whether it's maybe you've been not fair or just or kind and gentle with your wife or your husband, and you want to talk to them. You say, I've been attending these classes in the masjid, and I realized that the way I talk to you is not according to the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. It's not the best character. And I want to improve my character. So starting today, I'm gonna fix myself. And I'm gonna work at it. And for all of those times that I hurt you, I admit it, that I was wrong. And going forward, I'm not gonna be that way. I'm gonna try to change. And I apologize for all of that past, the things that I did. Right? And that's it. And that's where you start. And then you have to work at it, right? Spend more time with them, right? Quality time, all the things that we talked about, how do you show love to each other, right? And so spending time and doing service and praising them and loving them and, whatever the way they want to be loved. So, but, this here is the true test of character. Because we love, talks are great. They're fun. You sit down, you hear a story, you feel motivated, But this right here, if you can do this, and we all have those relationships. Every single one of us has at least one. Maybe it's a parent, maybe it's a child, maybe it's a spouse, maybe it's a sibling, maybe it's a friend, maybe it's someone in our families. So repair that relationship. And over the years you've been growing apart. It'll be hard to come back together, but you start. And on the day of judgment, when you stand before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you say, "Oh Allah, I learned this and I put it into action." Right? And you start trying. Because it's not the results that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala cares about. It's your actions, your efforts. So I pray with that we end this chapter on the Muslim and his children. And inshallah ta'ala, next time we will continue with the Muslim and his relatives. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the tawfiq to act on these things that we learn. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make them a means of elevating us in the hereafter and not a means of degrading us in the hereafter. Jazakumullahu khairan wa assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.